The Financial Expert. Part 1. From time immemorial, people seem to have been calling him Margaya.
No one knew, except his father and mother, who were only dimly recollected by a few cronies in his ancestral village, that he had been named after the enchanting god Krishna. Everyone called him Margaya and thought that he had been called so at his naming ceremony. He himself must have forgotten his original name. He had gradually got into the habit of signing his name, Margaya, even in legal documents.
And what did it mean? It was purely derivative. Marg meant the way, and Aya was an honorific suffix. Taken together, it denoted one who showed the way. He showed the way out to those in financial trouble.
And in all those villages that lay within a 100-mile radius of Malgudi, was there anyone who could honestly declare that he was not in financial difficulties? The emergence of Margaya was an unexpected and incalculable offshoot of a co-operator's zeal. This statement will be better understood if we watch him in his setting a little more closely.
One of the proudest buildings in Malgudi was the Central Cooperative Land Mortgage Bank, which was built in the year 1914 and named after a famous registrar of cooperative societies, Sir, who had been knighted for his devotion to cooperation after he had, in fact, lost his voice explaining cooperative principles to peasants in the village at one end and to the officials in charge of the files at the secretariat end. It was said that he died while serving on a rural indebtedness subcommittee.
After his death, it was discovered that he had left all his savings for the construction of the bank. He now watched, from within a teak frame suspended on the central landing, all the comings and goings, and he was said to be responsible for occasional poltergeist phenomena, the rattling of paperweights, flying ledgers, and sounds like the brisk opening of folios, the banging of fists on a table, and so on, evidenced by successive night watchmen. This could be easily understood, for the ghost of the registrar had many reasons to feel sad and frustrated.
All the principles of cooperation for which he had sacrificed his life were dissolving under his eyes. If he could look beyond the portals of the bank itself, right across the little stretch of lawn under the banyan tree, in whose shade Margaya sat and transacted his business, there was always a semicircle of peasants sitting round him, and by their attitude and expression one might easily guess that they were suppliants. Margaya, though very much their junior, he was just 42, commanded the respect of those who sat before him.
He was to them a wizard who enabled them to draw unlimited loans from the cooperative bank. If the purpose of the cooperative movement was the promotion of thrift and the elimination of middlemen, those two were just the objects that were defeated here under the banyan tree. Margaya didn't believe in advocating thrift. His living depended upon helping people to take loans from the bank opposite and from each other. His tin box, a grey, discolored, knobby affair, which was small enough to be carried under his arm, contained practically his entire equipment: a bottle of ink, a pen and a blotter, a small register whose pages carried an assortment of names and figures, and above all, the most important item, loan application forms of the cooperative bank.
These last named were his greatest asset in life, and half his time was occupied in acquiring them. He had his own agency at work to provide him with these forms. When a customer came, the very first question Margaya asked was, "Have you secured the application form?"
"No." "Then go into that building and bring one. Try and get 1 or 2 spare forms as well." It was not always possible to secure more than one form. For the clerks, they were very strict and perverse.
They had no special reason to decline to give as many forms as were required except the impulse to refuse anything that is persistently asked for. All the same, Margaya managed to gather quite a lot of forms and kept them handy. They were taken out for use on special occasions.
Sometimes a villager arrived who did not have a form and who could not succeed in acquiring one by asking for it in the bank. On such occasions, Margaya charged a fee for the blank form itself, and then another for filling in the relevant details. The clerks of the bank had their own methods of worrying the villagers.
A villager who wanted to know his account had to ask for it at the counter, and invariably the accounts clerk snapped back, "Where is your passbook?" A passbook was a thing the villager could never keep his hand on. If it was not out of sight, it was certain to be out of date.
This placed the villager fully at the mercy of the clerk, who would say, "You will have to wait till I get through all the work I have now on hand. I'm not being paid to look after only your business here." And then the peasant would have to hang about for a day or two before getting an answer to his question, which would only be after placating the clerk with an offering in cash or kind.
It was under such circumstances that Margaya's help proved invaluable. He kept more or less parallel accounts of at least 50 of the members of the bank. What its red tape obstructed, he cleared up by his own contrivance.
He carried most of the figures in his head. He had only to cite a customer, for instance Mallana of Koppal, as it now happened to be, to say at once, "Oh, you have come back for a new loan, I suppose."
If you pay 75 rupees more, you can again take 300 rupees within a week. The by-law allows a new loan when 50% is paid up. How can I burden myself with a further loan of 300, Margaya?
It's unthinkable. Now would begin all the persuasiveness that was Margaya's stock in trade. He asked point blank, "What difference is it going to make?"
Are you not already paying a monthly installment of 17 rupees 8 annas? Are you or are you not? Yes, I'm paying.
God knows how much I have to. I don't want all that, Margaya said, cutting him short. I am not concerned with all that, how you pay or what you do.
You may perhaps pledge your life or your wife's saris. It is none of my concern. All that I want to know is whether you are paying an installment now or not. Yes, master, I do pay.
You will continue to pay the same thing, that is all. Call me a dog if they ask you for even 1 anna more. You fool, don't you see the difference?
You pay 17 rupees 8 annas now for nothing, but under my present plan you will pay the same 17 rupees 8 annas but with another 300 rupees in your purse. Don't you see the difference? But what's the use of 300 rupees, master?
Oh, I see, you don't see a use for it. Alright, don't come to me again.
I have no use for nincompoops like you. You are the sort of fellow who won't. He elaborated a bawdy joke about him and his capacity, which made the atmosphere under the tree genial all round. The other villagers sitting around laughed.
But Margaya assumed a stern look, and pretended to pass on to the next question in hand. He sat poring over some papers, with his spectacles uneasily poised over his nose. Those spectacles were a recent acquisition, the first indication that he was on the wrong side of 40.
He resisted them as long as he could. He hated the idea of growing old, but long sight does not wait for approval or welcome. You cannot hoodwink yourself or anyone else too long about it. The strain of holding a piece of paper at arm's length while reading stretches the nerves of the forearm and invites comments from others. Margaya's wife laughed aloud one day and asked, "Why don't you buy a pair of glasses like other young men of your age?
Otherwise you will sprain your hand." He acted upon this advice and obtained a pair of glasses mounted in silver from the VN stores in the market. He and the proprietor of the shop had been playmates once, and Margaya took the glasses on trial, and forgot to go that way again.
He was accosted about it on the road occasionally by the rotund optician, who was snubbed by Margaya. "Haven't you the elementary courtesy to know the time and place for such reminders?" Sorry. The other hastened to apologize. "I didn't intend to hurt or insult you." What greater insult can a man face than this sort of thing?
What will an onlooker think? I am busy from morning to night, no time even for a cup of coffee in the afternoon. Alright, it doesn't matter.
Will you send someone to my house? I'm not able to use those glasses either. I wanted to come and exchange them if possible, but it trailed off into indefiniteness, and the optician went away once again and soon ceased to bother about it.
It was one of his many bad debts, and very soon he changed his commodity. Gradually his showcase began to display powder puffs, scents, chocolate bars, and the silver-rimmed glasses sat securely on Margaya's nose. He now took off his spectacles and folded the sides as if disposing once and for all of the problem of Mallana. He looked away at a man on his right and remarked, "You may have to wait for a week more before I can take up your affair."
"Brother, this is urgent. My daughter's marriage is coming off next month." "Your daughter's marriage? I have to find you the money for it, but the moment my service is done, you will forget me."
"You will not need your Margaya anymore." The other made several deprecating noises, as a protestation of his loyalty. He was a villager called Kand who had come walking from his village 15 miles away.
He owned about 20 acres of land and a house and cattle, but all of it was tied up in mortgages, most through Margaya's advice and assistance. He was a gambler and drank heavily, and he always asked for money on the pretext of having to marry his daughters, of whom he had a good number. Margaya preferred not to know what happened to all the money, but helped him to borrow as much as he wanted.
The only course now left is for you to take a joint loan, but the difficulty will be to find someone as a partner. He looked round at the gathering before him and asked, all of you are members of the cooperative society. Can't someone help a fellow creature?
Most of them shook their heads. One of them remarked, how can you ask for our joint signature? It's risky to do it even for one's own brother.
It's most risky between brothers, added Margaya. But I'm not suggesting it for brothers now. I am only suggesting it between human beings.
They all laughed and understood that he was referring to an elder brother of his with whom he was known to be on throat-cutting terms. He prepared to deliver a speech. Here is a great man, a big man. You cannot find a more important man round about Somanur. He has lands, cattle. Yes, he's a big man in every way.
No doubt, he has certain habits, no use shutting our eyes to it, but I guarantee he will get over them. He must have a joint loan because he needs at least 500 rupees immediately to see him through his daughter's marriage. You know how it is with the dowry system. Everybody made a sympathetic noise and shook their heads.
Very bad, very bad. Why should we criticize what our ancestors have brought into existence? Someone asked.
Why not? Another protested. Some people are ruined by the dowry. Why do you say some people?
Margaya asked. Why am I here? 3 daughters were born to my father.
5 cartloads of paddy came to us every half year, from the fields. We just heaped them up on the floor of the hall. We had 5 halls to our house, but where has it all gone? To the 3 daughters.
By the time my father found husbands for them, there was nothing left for us to eat at home. But is it not said that a man who begets a son is blessed in 3 lives, because he gives away the greatest treasure on earth, said someone. And how much more blessed is he that gives away 3 daughters?
He is blessed no doubt, but he also becomes a bankrupt, Margaya said. The talk thus went on, round and round, always touching practical politics again at some point or other. Margaya put his spectacles on, looked fixedly at Mallana, and said, come and sit near me.
The villager moved up. Margaya told the gathering, we have to talk privately. And they all looked away and pretended not to hear, although all their attention was concentrated on the whispering that now started between the two.
Margaya said, it's going to be impossible for Kant to get a joint loan, but he ought to be ready to accept whatever is available. I know you can help him and help yourself. You will lose nothing. In fact, you will gain a little interest.
You will clear half your present loan by paying 75 rupees and apply for a fresh one. Since you don't want it, give it to Kant. He will pay you 7.5%.
You give the 4.5% to that father-in-law. Margaya always referred to the cooperative bank with a fresh sobriquet, and take the 3% yourself. He will pay back the installments to you. I will collect and give them to you.
Mallana took time to grasp all the intricacies of this proposition, and then asked, suppose he doesn't? Margaya looked horrified at this doubt. What is there to be afraid of when I am here?
At this, one of the men who was supposed to be out of earshot remarked, what is possible in this world without mutual trust? Margaya added, listen to him. He knows the world.
The result of all this talk was that Mallana agreed to the proposal. Margaya grew busy filling up a loan application form with all the details of Mallana's heritage, etc. He read it out aloud, seized hold of Mallana's left thumb, pressed it on a small ink pad he carried in his box and pressed it again on the application form and endorsed it.
He took out of the box 75 rupees in cash and handed them to Mallana with, why should I trust you with this without a scrap of paper? Now credit this to your account and halve your loan, and then present that application. If they refuse to take it?
Why should they refuse? They have got to accept it. You are a shareholder, and they have got to accept your application.
It's not their grandfather's money that they are giving you but your own. By law. He quoted the by law, and encouraged by it, the other got up and moved on.
It is impossible to describe more clearly than this Margaya's activity under the tree. He advanced a little loan, for interest, so that the little loan might wedge out another loan from the cooperative bank, which in its turn was passed on to someone in need for a higher interest. Margaya kept himself as the center of all the complex transaction, and made all the parties concerned pay him for his services, the bank opposite him being involved in it willy-nilly.
It was as strenuous a job as any other in the town, and he felt that he deserved the difficult income he ground out of a couple of 100 rupees in his box, sitting there morning till evening. When the evening sun hit him on the nape of the neck, he pulled down the lid of his box and locked it up, and his gathering understood that the financial wizard was closing his office for the day. Margaya deposited the box under a bench in the front room of his house.
His little son immediately came running out from the kitchen with a shout, "Appa!" and gripped his hand, asking, "What have you brought today?" Margaya hoisted him up on his shoulder. "Well, tomorrow, I will buy you a new engine, a small engine." The child was pleased to hear it.
He asked, "How small will the engine be? Will it be so tiny?" He indicated with his thumb and first finger a minute size.
"All right," said Margaya and put him down. This was almost a daily ritual. The boy reveled in visions of miniature articles, a tiny engine, tiny cows, tiny table, tiny everything, of the maximum size of a mustard seed.
Margaya put him down and briskly removed his upper cloth and shirt, picked up a towel that was hanging from a nail on the wall, and moved to the backyard. Beyond a small clump of banana trees, which waved their huge fan-like leaves in the darkness, there was a single well of crumbling masonry, with a pulley over its crossbar. Margaya paused for a moment to admire the starry sky.
Down below at his feet, the earth was damp and marshy. All the drain water of 2 houses flowed into the banana beds. It was a common backyard for his house and the one next door, which was his brother's.
It was really a single house, but a partition wall divided it into 2 from the street to the backyard. Number 14D, Vinayak Street had been a famous landmark, for it was the earliest house to be built in that area. Margaya's father was considered a hero for settling there in a lonely place where there was supposed to be no security for life or property.
Moreover, it was built on the fringe of a cremation ground, and often the glow of a burning pyre lit up its walls. After the death of the old man, the brothers fell out, their wives fell out, and their children fell out. They could not tolerate the idea of even breathing the same air or being enclosed by the same walls.
They got involved in litigation and partitioned everything that their father had left. Everything that could be cut in 2 with an axe or scissors or a knife was divided between them, and the other things were catalogued, numbered and then shared out. But one thing that could neither be numbered nor cut up was the backyard of the house with its single well.
They could do nothing about it. It fell to Margaya's share, and he would willingly have seen his brother's family perish without water by closing it to them, but public opinion prevented the exercise of his right.